Item F1 is a resolution of support for the expansion of the Mayo Civic Center and additional directives. Could I have a motion, please?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Wojak, second by Ruska. Mayor, you wanted to make a comment.
Yes, thank you very much. As has been mentioned earlier, this has been not something without some controversy, but better than a couple of years ago, I think already, we had a financing plan that for the expansion of the Mayo Civic Center, of which estimated $75 million expansion, of which we would receive, hopefully on bonding, half of that. And we did receive, I think it was $3.5 million for planning, which we have the architectural plans basically done. They're done. And our portion then, the 30 or so million, would come from, at that time, we were proposing a lodging tax and a food and beverage tax of 1%. And the bonding at that time had been approved by the legislature, but then was deleted by Governor Pawlenty some probably 4 years ago. Earlier this year, Governor Dayton had included it in his plan, and then nothing got approved at that time. In the meantime, we've also have this sales tax extension that we're proposing that ultimately did get approved this year by the legislature, and our request to have that referendum this year was not given, and we have to wait till next year, the November general election, for that. All of those things have added complications to this whole plan. We did listen to the public, businesses, citizens, Convention and Visitors Bureau, of course the hoteliers, and I can say I was probably most satisfied earlier with the plan that was laid out before, with the lodging tax of 1% and food and beverage of 1%. But unlike our so-called super committee and our state legislators that don't seem to be able to get together, we're proposing this compromise. And Danny and I, Mr. President and I, spoke about this, presented it to our city attorney, and we have this resolution before us. I would also, while it's not written in this resolution, I would certainly propose that as we move forward, we would include or request that the bonding at least be put into the package for 2012. Not sure where that will go, but so we have a placeholder basically in there. So I would encourage passage of this resolution, knowing that this plan would require some modifications to what the legislature had already approved, and also have to have the legislature approve that lodging tax as it is. And as Mr. Wojak already said, I think even with this 3%, it's in line and actually under most major metropolitan or medical centers in the country and even within the state. And while it may not justify it, the length of stay for people that come to Mayo Clinic through the great expertise they have and the efficiencies, people aren't staying as long generally as they once did. And so the final impact may not be as great as what certainly appears on the surface. So again, I would approve or suggest approval of this.
All right, I'm going to...
And just for the record, I've been writing down what other folks said so I don't double up on that stuff.
Thank you.
Over the weekend, after seeing this, I had time to do quite a bit of research and took note of all the comments that were made to me. And a couple points that I wanted to add to the discussion is, first of all, we passed a resolution a long time ago saying that our top bonding priority for 2012 was the Civic Center, and the City Council never had any policy change at that point. There apparently was some sort of a shadow government operation going on that apparently were deciding things for us. And I think I give you credit for your leadership on this one, bringing it back to reaffirm the fact that this is where the city stands right now. It's very real that our civic center is losing money right now, and the reality is nationwide, every civic center, for the most part, loses money. That's part of the way that it plays out, and typically it's offset by local taxes. In our particular case, we currently take some income that comes in from hotel motel, run it through the general fund and back to the Civic Center. That's, I think, done fairly common. But, you know, we have some real deficiencies out there, and the reason we have deficiencies out there is because the facility hasn't been properly maintained for a long time. And the reason the facility really hasn't been properly maintained for a long time is the fact that we've been in a never-ending budget cutting mode since really 2003. And the first thing that gets cut is capital improvement projects that are likely to be addressed in a future larger capital project, which this one is. One of the concerns that I heard tonight, and I heard by email as well, was particularly the ability of people to pay the taxes when they come here visiting a medical community. So I took that to heart and actually spent a lot of time going out and looking at what other communities were doing. And the first thing I did is went out to U.S. News and World Report, and they have an honor roll of the top medical institutions in the nation. There were 17 of them in this last episode, of which we were ranked number 3. And the other 16 representing 14 different cities, I went out to take a look at what their combined lodging tax would be for all of those facilities. And it turns out, actually, on average, even with the 3% increase in lodging tax that's being proposed here, we have still a lower than average lodging tax with regards to those, which I think is going to surprise a lot of people, but the facts do bear that out. More importantly, you know, there are many different incomes of people who come to Rochester, and some of them really are in really in tough straits here. And you know, I took that 3%, and the usually the bottom end hotel motel rate in the city of Rochester is around $40, which translates to this would end up being $1.20 per night is what it's going to be in the you know, for those in the, you know, the probably the working poor that are coming here and have the lowest cost accommodation. So it's not nothing, but it's fairly insignificant as well compared to the other travel costs associated. I also compared our hotel motel tax to other regional centers in this area, and first and foremost, we'll be right with the other major centers in Minnesota. We're right there with Duluth, we're right there with Minneapolis, St. Paul, St. Cloud. They're all in the same range. So the idea that this is somehow unusual or burdensome is just not borne out by the facts, and I am a big believer in the facts, even if that's not cool sometimes. You know, seeing that this is a responsible idea, we also got a lot of input from food and beverage providers as well that were very opposed to this tax, and there was a little bit more of a disconnect going from food and beverage as opposed to the hotel motel. But this is one way, I think, of bringing another group on board, and this avoids a new tax from being implemented in Rochester, which is something that I'm in favor of. Now, all of this deferred maintenance that we have out there, you know, we're maybe looking at a $10 million bill. If we don't do the expansion renovation project, we're looking at a $10 million bill. That $10 million is going to be something that's going to be coming out of property taxes if we don't do that. That means that $10 million is coming directly out of the pocketbooks of those of us that live here in Rochester. The way that this is being proposed, we have no incremental increase. And what I mean by that is the lodging tax is paid by guests of our community, as it is all over the country. And the other portion, the state tax, it's very true that we do pay state taxes, but we get far less of our dollar back than almost anywhere in Minnesota. And I can assure you that whether or not the bonding project for Mayo Civic Center is included in the next bonding bill, it will not change the total of that bonding bill. So the idea that somehow there'll be a smaller bonding bill if we don't do that is not going to be the case. So this is a good funding mechanism to deal with some issues. Now we're looking at $10 million to do maintenance and end up with the same dated facilities that we have today, or we're looking at something, a different funding source where we basically have no net increase in local dollars, and we're getting a brand new facility, significant upgrades to Taylor Arena, Presentation Hall, the auditorium, the Civic Theater, you know, some real enhancing of the spaces. The meeting rooms are going to be a lot nicer. And this is, you know, leaving the expansion completely out of the equation for right now. It makes good fiscal sense to do it this way, and that's why I tend to be supportive. There were points made about public input, and you know, I think the key here is that this is not a done deal. The drawings that were done for the Civic Center expansion were completed 5 or so years ago, and there are some things that we need to be updated in there. I have a few on my list as well that we know need to be updated, and we're going to make sure that you know, these meetings, we have some public input for that to make sure that this meets the what the community wants to see in our Civic Center. right in the heart of downtown Rochester. If we want to be a truly outstanding community, we got to take care of this building that's really falling apart on us, and it does need some work right now, and this is going to be a good way of doing it. I guess the last point that I'll make is, all the sound bites aside, I don't want to be Mississippi. I don't want to have the lowest of the taxes because we see what a deplorable place it leads into. I want to be a place that has the ability to attract and retain the best and the brightest. I want to have the amenities here that make us a great community. This is, I think, what makes Rochester great. We do it because we can bring the best doctors here, and they're willing to live here, and they're willing to stay here. And that has a lot to do with what we have to offer as a community, and this is a part of it. So this is probably not going to be a popular project. I think we all understand that, and I give you, President Hansen in particular, a lot of courage for continuing to fight this battle. And you might want to, Mike, back in the camera, you might want to cycle that one a few times because that doesn't always come out. But, the reality is that Target Field was not very popular when it was at this phase. The Peace Plaza here in Rochester was horribly unpopular, probably less so than this, but I was one of those people that thought the Peace Plaza was crazy when it was being proposed, but you know what, I was dead wrong, and it's been a tremendous success for the community. And I think that we need to do this project right. We need to do it for the future of the community, and even if it's an unpopular decision that has to be made, I think it's the right decision, and I think that this Civic Center, which was initially a gift from the Mayo family, I think we have an obligation to preserve it and reinvest in it and make it great for the next generation as well. So I am excited that we're going to be voting on this again tonight, and I'm proud to support it.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider.